Have you ever considered investing in mobile home communities? Well, there's a lot of things to like, particularly on the returns. If you're interested in learning more, you want to hear today's conversation with Leo Young. Now, Leo is the CEO of Cornell Communities, where he helps limited partners learn about and invest in manufactured homes or mobile home communities. If you want to learn more on how to do it the right way and protect yourself as an investor, check out this conversation right here on Multifamily Insights. Leo Young is the founder and managing partner of Cornell Communities, a private equity real estate firm revitalizing manufactured housing communities across 8 states. With more than 75 million in real estate transactions, institutional private equity experience, and hands-on operational leadership, he expands access to affordable housing while generating disciplined, risk-managed returns for accredited investors. Let's welcome to the show, Leo Young.
Thanks so much for having me, John. Very excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Leo, I went over your bio at a very, very high level. Why don't you take 1 minute and fill in some of those gaps?
Sure. You got most of it right. I'm the founder and managing partner at Cornell Communities. We're operators of mobile home parks slash manufactured housing communities. They're both the same things. And yeah, we really emphasize on revitalizing affordable housing. We want to have impact to our dollars, so make money for our investors and also improve the lives of our residents. My background, kind of interesting, and we could definitely go into it, but I studied finance in college, have always been interested into investments, took a pivot, went into sales to kind of figure out, how to communicate better, how to talk to people. So I was working at Tesla and then got my real estate license, fell in love with real estate, worked for a fund and then, now started my own.
All right, man. I love it. That's a very unique background. You mentioned that you started off in finance, went into sales, working at Tesla, got your real estate license, and now launched your fund. It's a lot of kind of unique skill sets that it sounds like you intentionally kind of
Yes.
stacked on top of each other. What were you
Yeah.
doing with Tesla?
So at Tesla, I was on their sales team. Um, you know, I'll give you the story behind it. When I was studying finance, I mean, I'm more like the thinker type, analytical stuff like that. But I'm also an introvert, and I realized at the time when I graduated, I'm like, hey, look, I can't hold a presentation. Even if my life depended on it, it's just like I would get nervous speaking in front of people. I didn't know how to communicate. So, like, this is a glaring issue that I have to fix. Tesla at the time was my dream company. I've been following Elon for a long time, was really a big fan of his mission to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. So, wanted to join him on it. And yeah, I mean, I kind of worked my way up from knowing nothing about sales and like, man, it was painful. Like the early days, like this stuff didn't come naturally to me. But I kind of didn't leave myself any other option than to get good. And then, gradually worked my way up, became like the top regional salesperson, despite being who I am.
I love it, man. I love it. Well, congratulations on that success. So what got you into real estate? You mentioned you got your license, but you mentioned also that Tesla's your dream job. You got up to be the top regional salesperson. Why real estate?
Yeah. So I was at Tesla at a time where, I mean, I'm sure their work ethic and work culture is still very intense, but at that time it was extra intense. They were almost going bankrupt, and like the going concern of the company, along with like all the haters and everything. It just like it was a lot of pressure, and sales as a job is very like boom or bust. Like you're running in a hamster wheel, and it's just like, hey, sprint as hard as you can, hit the quota, crush it, and then rest for a day and then do it again. And it's just like it's not sustainable on you. Had a couple of revelations to get me thinking like, hey, I need to start building income, still building like wealth that doesn't depend on me to clock in and out. So that's when I kind of looked into, hey, like how do I build this kind of like financial freedom people are talking about on social media and stuff. Got the research, found real estate, found passive investments, invested into a apartment complex, um, and fell in love from there. Got my first distribution check, and I was like, "All right, I think this concept can actually make sense." And then went all in afterwards. Quit my job, went into brokerage full time just to like learn and just be a sponge.
Man, that seems one, to some people probably scary, right? And to others, very honorable of you to recognize that, hey, even though I'm crushing it in this role, it's maybe taking a lot more of my personal time and I'm missing out on other things that I'd like to do. So let me transition and let me figure out how to learn this brand new industry and this game called real estate, as opposed to maybe continue to thrive in the role you were doing. There's a little bit of a theme that's starting to come up, man. It's you um, challenging yourself and making sure you don't get too comfortable. Like, one, do you see that when you look at your career and your experiences? And if so, where do you think that comes from?
100%. So accountability and kind of asking myself the hard questions has always been a theme throughout my life. I think, on the outside and, if you see me on like social media and stuff, I might seem like a very calm, even keeled person, but like on the inside, I'm super tough on myself. Always asking myself, like, all right, like, can I be doing more? Like, come on, what the heck's going on? Right? Like, pick it up. Let's do this. And that's kind of what drives me to do more and to create new things, do things that I've never done before, get myself in rooms that I wasn't necessarily invited to be a part of, but I just opened the door, I went in and kind of like made myself own the room a little bit. So yeah, I mean, it was kind of like when you look backwards on your career, like everything makes sense, right? You can connect the dots looking back, but looking forward, it was more so like what makes sense to me at this moment. And kind of going at it with a level of intensity that um yeah, I think that level of intensity has definitely smoothed out over the years, but initially, like, I was very hot-headed. I was, like, super passionate, super ambitious, so I'm like, "Let me do this full time," but, looking back, like, I would have done some things differently.
Yeah. I mean, I think most of us, look back and recognize, hey, we probably could have been more efficient here or calm down a little bit there, or maybe we're a little bit too impulsive there, right? So that's part of it. But it's interesting because I think for most people, they look for safety, and you look for change because you see the threat that is on the horizon. And sounds like again, maybe there's some burnout in the sales world. Maybe you saw a little bit of that, but it also just seemed like you were just seeking a new challenge as well, as opposed to, okay, hey, let me find a different sales role in a different company. You said, nah, I'm gonna change industries altogether and just try to do something different.
Yeah, yeah, actually 2 things, 2 thoughts that I thought of is, 1, I was actually quite risk averse, and that's part of why I went into real estate because kind of doing some research and figuring out like, what's the Dale Carnegie quote? Like, hey, 90% of all millionaires do so through real estate. I'm like, well, hey, if I'm playing a game of odds, like, might as well go into real estate, right? Pretty good odds of doing that. And fundamentally, it made sense to me. It's not like, hey, like you have a business that goes out of style, like newspaper, like people stop buying newspaper, like that business goes out of style, like rent, like it's not going to go out of style. People need a roof over their heads. It's a good business model. It's sustainable. So I kind of did that to de-risk my portfolio personally. But yeah, I mean, taking risks with my career while I was young and, without like baggage, so to speak. Um, I saw that as my way to get ahead, because I think um, people when they want to change their situation in their lives, like they have to do something different. And for me, I kind of allowed myself to do that, and I didn't let the doubt creep in and be like, hey, what do people think about me? I just did it because I'm like, hey, what's the worst that can happen? Like I could flame out and then go back to a job or something. I'll be fine.
I love that about you because you mentioned, listen, if you don't like your situation, you have to do something different and you can't worry about all the negative potential outcomes. You've got to just go there, recognize you can always go back. You can, if you're not burning bridges, you can go back to the job you had, or you can at least come back to the same industry and find new employment there, right? You've already built that skill set and have a track record. So it doesn't hurt you to take that risk. Now, obviously, you got to, for everyone, it's a little bit different based on your family dynamic, but, being able to push yourself, if you're not happy, you got to take action. And that's one thing that, if they're listening to this podcast, nothing happens from listening. I mean, it's great, right? But you have to take action. Reach out to someone like Leo, reach out to myself, join a mastermind, like get in some groups, you know, put in an offer on a project, invest passively in a deal. But you've got to do something, take action if you actually want to see something different in your life. So that's really, really important points here. All the reading, all the education in the world, it means nothing if you don't take action, do something with it. So you went from investing passively in apartments to now you're focused on manufactured mobile homes. One, you say, hey, it's the same thing, but I've seen that phrase multiple ways. And I know maybe manufactured home sounds a little bit better to some people, but like, what is the distinction between manufactured homes and mobile homes?
So, manufactured homes is the legal term. So, since around 1978, the HUD, so the Housing and Urban Development um, Department, they have rules in place of like what a mobile home or a manufactured home has to have, like certain like requirements and stuff. So legally, from them point, it's manufactured housing, but it's just a mouthful. So people call it mobile home because like that's how you know things are. It's just like path of least resistance, and it sounds better than trailer park because I think people they might have gotten the wrong impression of mobile home parks like through movies like 8 Mile and Trailer Park Boys and stuff. But the reality is that there's quite a lot of people that live into these communities. I mean, it's around 20 million Americans that live inside one of these communities, and they range from, I mean, sure, like there's like trailer parks, but then there's also really nice ones, right? You have like Barbara Corcoran, like she owns a $2 million home inside a manufactured housing community. They're like different caliber of product, so that's how people refer to it.
It's interesting, man. So I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio, and
Yeah.
we have both types here. I mean, I've seen you're driving through a neighborhood, and then you're like, oh, you look to the right, and you're like, oh, like this is different.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's some closer up to Kings Island where they're really, really nice, and they're almost like it's almost like an RV type park where people come to either vacation or stay for a few weeks at a time, but really nice manufactured community. So you definitely see a range. Tell me about kind of your investing, strategy. Do you focus on one style versus the other, or how do you approach the market?
Yeah, so we're more like middle market buyers. So, we want something that's not the worst in terms of quality, not in terms of the best. And the reason why we don't go after the best top quality stuff is because there are a ton of institutions and REITs in this space, and those kinds of products just get gobbled up by them. They have a cheaper cost of capital, which is, another way of saying like they don't pay their investors as much. So like they're able to be more aggressive with their offers, have a longer term view, yada yada. So for us, we're in that middle bracket of, hey, we want something that's workable and that we can improve on. We can do our value add. I think it's very important, as an investor, when you're looking at sponsors for deals, it's like, what is the value add that you'll bring to a deal? And what's the probability or likelihood that you'll be able to execute on it? I think that that's like a question that I learned because I also continue to be a passive investor into other people's deals. So, these are questions that I ask sponsors as well.
Leo, talk to me about that part, right? So you mentioned that you don't do the higher end manufactured homes because you're competing with more institutional investors, but you do want to have, nicer homes that have some value and can attract a fair tenant base for it. But you're asking your questions both as an investor yourself, as well as like a limited investor, as well as an operator. So, what are you looking for when you look at any deal, whether it's to buy to be an operator or you're investing in a deal that is going to be operated by someone else?
Yeah. So when it comes to deals that we evaluate as a group to bring to our investors, so as the general partner or sponsor or manager, um, the primary criteria is if the infrastructure is good. Because that's one of the biggest hurdles with mobile home parks is that these properties are older because it just doesn't, there aren't many new mobile home parks being built because A, it doesn't pencil for the developer, and B, municipalities don't like it because it just doesn't give enough tax revenue. It also like supposedly brings down the value of other single
There's
family
a
homes in the
stigma.
area.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah,
stigma.
exactly, exactly. So they're not being built. So we're buying existing ones. These are 50, 70 plus years old. So we want to make sure that water, sewer lines, roads, infrastructure, they're good. We have good bones, because if you have a big capex item just hit you that you don't plan for, that's going to throw the business plan off. So having that, second is like purchase price, the location, regulations. That's another big one. So once we make sure that the property is fine, then we're confident in ourselves as operators. Like, we know what we're able to take on. We know what we have bandwidth for, what kind of projects that we could take on. So we got to make sure that the project and the team is right. So to answer your second part of your question is, as a passive investor, what do I ask for? I want to make sure there's a compelling reason for the both of them. So, I think a lot of people, when they send their deal decks, they kind of highlight on how good the property is, and then, when it comes to their team, it's just like, a bunch of like text, like, oh, I went to so and so school, and but it doesn't say like, hey, we've done this similar projects, like this is what we've done in the past, like here's some case studies, like ask us about it or something. I think that will be very important to know, and like I almost always like ask the sponsor about it, just get a gauge for them as well. Because there's a certain amount that you can read on a deck or a website, but then there's another that comes from actually talking to the person, and actually knowing and like kind of getting that gut feeling. Like, how would you handle, if if crap hits the fan, like what are you gonna do? Are you gonna move on site to like make sure things are fine? Are you gonna dig into your own pockets and like float the deal, or like are you just gonna throw your hands up and blame the economy, right? So
Those are
things like that.
great questions, man. We actually put together a guide. It's 7 questions you must ask before investing in apartments, and that's exactly one of the first questions, right? Is you got to vet the sponsor and the operator, and you need to ask the tough questions. And I know sometimes folks may feel uncomfortable asking those questions, but you're also considering investing 50,000, $100,000 of your hard-earned money into a deal. You can ask those tough questions. It's okay. So feel empowered to do that with respect, but ask the tough questions. And simply put, you should be asking, how can I lose my money? What can happen in this deal where we lose money, right? That's where you start to uncover risk, and you want to hear how they're going to mitigate risk. Another question that I always ask, both as a limited partner, and I expect folks to ask me when they're investing in these deals, is to tell me about a deal that didn't go according to plan. Doesn't necessarily mean that you have to lose money, but just we all have some kind of challenges in our deals. So you want to hear about that. You want to hear what happened, how it happened, what they did about it. And for me, I'm listening for ownership. Did this person own what happened and their role in it and what they could do better? Did it make them a better operator? Or are they blaming someone else? Oh, we had this bad property manager, or this contractor sucked. I mean, I've had contractors literally steal from me. And yes, that's not my fault, meaning like, hey, I didn't do anything wrong. But on the same note, at the end of the day, I'm still impacted. And on that deal, I didn't have any investors. Um, so for me, it's more, but what can you learn from that? So it's okay. Hey, we need to do a better job with our vetting process. We need to make sure we minimize, what we give up front. We need to make sure we have checks and balances when we do our draw. So you have to learn from it. Blaming someone else doesn't help you become better in the future. And I think the best operators, they take ownership no matter what happens. And that just makes you better, right? Where you can't allow someone else to manipulate you or steal from you. And those are that's what you pay as a passive investor. That's what you're investing for. You're paying, and you're getting somebody who's already gone through those scars, and they've already got burned, and they understand how to navigate that, because all these deals look great on paper, right? I mean, the reality is you got to go out there and execute. So Leo, I love your point there on how you approach, being an investor and being a passive investor at that. One of the things that I always see, particularly when it comes to like mobile homes, is the numbers as far as the return projections always seem a little bit better than maybe multifamily. And most of our listeners have a background in multifamily, or at least understand the rental world. So we're going to use that as an anchor. But it's not as clear as like what the investing thesis or strategy is in mobile homes. Like we know for multifamily, we can go and do a value add play where we're gonna renovate the units and add some amenities and lower expenses to create value, right? What does that translate into in the mobile home world?
Yeah, it's actually pretty similar. I mean, I think the goal of commercial real estate across the board is just like, hey, how do you increase this stream of income, right? We're all talking about the NOI, and then you apply a cap rate to get your valuation end of the day. And what makes mobile home parks unique is a few things. So one is that it's operationally much simpler than other properties out there. So there isn't a lot of things that you have to manage. So for the most part, we like for our residents to own their own home. So they're managing maintenance and stuff like that on their homes. Meanwhile, we maintain the infrastructure, the common areas, taxes, insurance, all that stuff. So fewer moving pieces, which means less in expenses, which just means a higher kind of or lower operating expense ratio, which means a higher NOI. And also the second part is that there's actually more depreciable value on average for mobile home parks because there's a lot of land improvement. So, when it comes to the 5 and 15 year kind of components, when you perform a cost segregation study, you can depreciate a lot more from it. So, those are two things like mechanically that make a lot of sense. But economically, these housing, these are lots. So they don't rent for as high as like, an apartment does. So because of that, you know, the demand for this kind of housing is quite high because like it's the cheapest form of housing that you can get out there or lowest cost, I should say. So there's always going to be demand if times are tough. Like people kind of move down, like they move out of the class A luxury apartment into like a class B to class C and stuff, and like there's nowhere else to move when it comes to like this kind of housing, and people like it. Like we get lots of inquiries of like, hey, like when do you have an opening? And we just don't. So, people come there, they like to stay there for a long time because like the value just super compelling to them. So, that's the other side too.
Leo, in your communities, do you allow people to, I guess, bring their homes, or are you pretty much like you've got your lots and the homes are already on site?
Yeah, yeah. So we do have people who bring their own homes on site, but for the most part, they just buy it in place. I think the misconception of like what mobile home parks is that they're not really mobile. It's quite logistically intensive to move them. Like you have to pay like maybe seven, eight, $10,000 to move it. Like move this home off, put it on a truck. Go 50 miles an hour to like wherever you're going, and then maybe it gets damaged along the way. So most people, like when they want to move out, they sell the home as is. So the benefit for them is that, they cash in on their equity that they built. They spend, 7, 10 years living in this property. They pay down their mortgage on their home and then, they sell it, they cash in. So new person comes in and it's simple as that.
Got it. That's very helpful because I do know a lot of folks hear mobile home park, and they literally think, "Oh, when it's time to move, I'll just hook it up to the trailer and pull out," right? And that's
That's more
not
so the
exactly the
RV
case.
model.
Yeah,
But yeah.
exactly. So Leo, you talked about kind of how you approach it as an investor, creating value, and again, for an apartment investor, you're typically thinking of, okay, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to improve the unit. In your case, you mentioned, hey, it's really the tenant who owns the home. So they're going to be the ones, if there's anything within that home, it's them. You're really focused on the lot. Like what are the levers you can pull to improve a lot?
Yeah, yeah. So there's a few kind of main value levers for mobile home parks. One is expenses. I think a lot of these homes or a lot of the properties used to be owned by individual owners, like what we call mom and pop owners, and they view the property as their own personal piggy bank. So it's like as long as I have enough going in my pocket, I'm fine. I don't need to try to optimize any sort of expenses. So there is a lot of kind of room for improvement there, kind of rebidding out vendor contracts and like, taking some expenses and, having residents pay for it instead. It's like, hey, like if this home is owned by you, like you have to pay for your own skirting, not the owner, right? So various things like that, even utility as well. So when people pay for their own water and sewer, they're more conservative. They don't use it as much. They're not going to fill up a pool in the summer as often as if it's included in the rent. Um, the other value lever is normalizing the rents. So a lot of these times, like the rental rates is far below what the market is in terms of comparable housing products in that municipality in the city. So for example, like you can rent a two-bedroom apartment in this city for 2,000. Meanwhile, your lot rent might only be 700. And, if you have like an all-in housing payment, might be like 1,500. So that's like far below what a comparable house is. So, there's like some room to raise it up a little bit closer to the market, and obviously still make sure that they have compelling value. Because like, hey, look, it's a free market. If you don't get good value, like they'll just move out, right? So, kind of balancing that, making the necessary improvements to the property. That doesn't drive the NOI, but it's more so just like quality of living. Improve the resident relations. Fill in some potholes, like redo the roads a little bit, put up some fencing, signage, lighting, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so really improving the community, and you mentioned the expenses because so many owners don't really run it like a business, right? We say mom and pop. That's kind of what we're getting at, right? Is that they're making money, so they're not really worried about the P&L and being as profitable as possible. So for you, it's more, hey, let's take a look at it. What kind of expenses really should be being paid by the owner of the homes, and not necessarily based on the property and the lot. So you're moving those expenses to the rightful owner, and then making the appropriate improvements so that it looks attractive for both current residents as well as attracting maybe new members to that community. And I think it's important too because, there's definitely some pros and cons. Like you guys aren't, on the hook for all the fixes that happen, right? The maintenance requests, like there's a lot of I don't say headaches. There's a lot of moving parts that you're not dealing with. But on the flip side, people are still living in these units. So you still are engaging with so many folks based on that. How do you handle like just community and building community where these folks have neighbors? There's always neighbor disputes, a little bit, different in apartments because everyone's right there next to each other. But again, even in these kind of communities, you're going to have some of that. So how do you approach, community and trying to create a great community environment?
So when it comes to community, I think the beautiful part about mobile home parks, manufactured housing communities is that a lot of the residents live there for a much longer time. So I think the average turnover is around 5% as opposed to like 50% for like apartments. So they really get to know each other, and like they kind of get the sense that like, all right, like it or not, I'm stuck with you. So let's play nice here. So that is one aspect of it. Second, I mean, yeah, like having your own space, that does help. I'm in New York City. I live in an apartment. Kind of sucks when like the upstairs neighbor is just being noisy and stuff, but not having that is much nicer. These guys, they have their own yard, their own driveway and stuff, and they just mind their own business. It's like a subdivision, rather than like a cooped up space. So it's a little bit different in terms of that, and it's like very um, self-sustaining for the most part.
I love it. Great stuff there. Well, Leo, what is the best way for our listeners to check out more information?
Yeah. So a couple ways, one, if you want to learn more about mobile home parks, our team, getting on our investor wait list, visit us at our website, cornellcommunities.com. That's CORNELLCOMMUNITIES.com. Or feel free to reach out to me directly on LinkedIn or Instagram. On LinkedIn, it's Leo Young, LeoYoung. On Instagram, it's Leo Young Real Estate.
I love it. Great stuff, Leo. Right now, we're going to transition and go to a round of insights. When you think you found a great deal, asking the right questions could be the difference in finding a stud or a dud. Listen, we've put together a new guide to help you out. It's called 7 Questions You Must Ask Before Investing in Apartments. Now, in this guide, you're going to learn how to uncover red flags, quickly identify underwriting risk, vet sponsors and team members, and confirm key assumptions. Now, this is a guide that's going to help you be a better investor, whether you're an active investor or you're a passive investor looking to partner with other operators. Asking better questions is the key to identifying great opportunities. So download this free guide. Go to our website, casmoncapital.com/7questions. That's the number 7 questions. And you can access this free guide today. To make it easy on you, though, we've put a link in our show notes. So you go to the show notes, you can click that link and access the guide right now. This guide's going to help you make better investment choices, asking the right questions to build your portfolio. So be sure to download it today. All right, Leo, give me a failure or an apparent failure that sets you up for later success.
Yeah, I think for me, it's navigating through my co-founder leaving. So, I started the firm with a co-founder. It was great. I mean, like we work so well together. We work overtime. We work so hard. And then, he left, he went into another business and I'm like, oh crap. Like I need to build systems. I need to put on like people in the right seats and like design that from the ground up. So I think that was a wake-up call and very painful, but, made it through much better now.
I love it. Give me a digital or mobile resource you recommend for our listeners.
I would say Claude. So make sure to load it up with context and, having the right context to give it. You want to prompt it correctly and like it will guide you to like the depths of wherever. But, as long as you know how to operate the system, when to push back, because sometimes it will say something and just be confident for no reason. So you have to be aware of the biases. You're like, all right, like tell me why you believe that and like push back against it. Sometimes you have to reset the way that it thinks. And shape it to be a thinking partner, not to substitute your thinking.
I love it. Great stuff there. Give me the book you've recommended or gifted the most in the last year.
I haven't necessarily gifted one particular book, but a book I read that I enjoyed a lot. Not to be biased, but it's the biography of Elon Musk. 95 chapters of Walter Isaacson going into like every key decision of the upcoming or the rising of Tesla, SpaceX, all that stuff. It was super helpful context, even for me, having worked at the company, and I understand like what is needed to drive more value to this world. Because like end of the day, like all we want to do is like make sure our life is well lit, make sure we're a positive contribution to society. And like, yeah, I mean, like how do you drive results in a world of uncertainty? So that was very helpful.
Give me a daily habit that helps you stay focused on your goals.
I have a set of mantras that I used to write out every day, just like affirmations and different things. And it evolved over time into recordings that I listen to. So like I read out my recordings and it kind of puts my mind in the right state when I wake up, because your first few thoughts when you wake up kind of shape your day, and your days shape your weeks shape your life. So it's very important to start on the right foot.
Love that. All right. Give me your number one insight for investing in mobile home communities.
Vet the operators. It has to be that over everything. Anybody can make an Excel or a pitch deck look sexy, but the operator is what drives the returns. And end of the day, like that's what matters to you as an investor, that your money's being taken care of well. It's being done to grow people in the right way and stuff like that. So vet out the sponsors. And that's why also like all of our investors have my personal cell. They can call me anytime.
I love it. Great stuff there. Lil, you mentioned you're in New York. Give us your favorite place to grab a bite to eat.
Oh, favorite place. If I can get into it, Rayo's, the pasta sauce brand. The story of it, I don't know if you know, but it's like impossible to get into, and it's quite an experience.
Sounds like a great spot, man. Rails, it is. We'll try to crack our shot at it and see if we get there next time we're up in New York. But good stuff, Leo, man. I really appreciate you sharing a little bit more about kind of your journey and challenging yourself along the way, man, from finance to sales to real estate, both as a limited partner, now as a general partner, a founder, overcoming some of the challenges and setbacks you face there. and talking to us about mobile home investing, understanding what's different in that space, how to create value, what to look for, and really that focus on finding great operators, right? And really enhancing and developing that skill set yourself so that you can bring those opportunities to investors. Again, if you want to learn more, check out cornellcommunities.com. We'll put a link to that in our show notes. Leo, thanks again for being a great guest and coming to Multifamily Insights. We look forward to staying in touch with you, and I hope you have a great day.
Amazing. Thank you, John. Appreciate you having me on.